The first time that I had walked across the country, it was for seeing my daughter for the very first time.
Hello and welcome to the Dad Dialogue podcast. We're back. We've had a little bit of a break over the summer holidays, but we're back for more stories from Dads, More Conversations, the podcast where we talk about the successes and stresses of becoming a dad and being a dad. I am your host, Lawrence. Thanks so much for being back with us for this first episode after this summer break. I hope you've had a nice summer holiday and I hope you're ready to go. Or if you're listening in the future, I hope whatever time of the year you're listening to is pleasant for you also. Today is an awesome episode. Joining me today is Timothy. Timothy is based in the US and has an absolutely fascinating story regarding his wife who, for a long time of his family with him and a long part of his marriage, lived abroad in a different country. I'm going to try and do justice with a very brief overview, but basically when Timothy met his wife, they didn't speak English together. She didn't speak English, he didn't speak Spanish. They had some difficulty communicating, but they were interested in one another, went on a date, and one thing led to another, and got pregnant and had a child. And Timothy supported his wife and his child from a distance, but then kind of had enough and wanted to get and see them, and walked across America to go and see them in Mexico. So did a long journey to get there because didn't have the means to get there otherwise. Then subsequently went on a few other walks to try and raise awareness for people in this sort of situation or families that have been separated. So really honourable stance that Timothy has taken. Just to warn you, we kind of take a lot of whips and backs and forths, as you might feel like you have whiplash at one point in terms of how the story gets told during the episode. We kind of jump through timelines back and forth a little bit, but I hope by the end of the episode, if you stick with it, you'll just see the real kind of uniqueness to Timothy's story and just the heart that he has to be with his wife and with his kids. He does now live with his wife and his kids in Mexico and are expecting another child many years later. But what that future family looks like, I'll leave him to introduce and explain all in the episode. So if you are interested in coming on the Dad Dialogue in future, you can go over to daddialogue.co.uk. There is a sign up form there if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode. But with all that being said, let's get into the conversation. Timothy, thank you so much for joining us here on the Dad Dialogue podcast. Can you just start off by telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself and your family?
Absolutely. So hi, my name's Timothy Scott, TJ Scott when I'm writing. And instead of diving straight into my story, I'd like to take a moment and ask you guys to take a walk with me. I want you guys to take a moment to close your eyes and think about the most important person in your life. What were you doing with it? Were you at a birthday party or were you at a sporting event? You know, maybe they were teaching you how to ride a bike or drive a car. You know, where were you? Now take that same person and remove them. They're no longer there. Would that situation still be the same? Probably not. So that's kind of gives you an idea of where I am as a father, as a husband. You know, I've spent over 20 years, being on and off with my wife and kids, being separated by borders, trying to provide for them financially, trying to do everything I can to be there for them, even though I wasn't physically there with them. And when I say doing everything, that includes walking across the United States of America from Virginia to California. I've walked the country 3 times in different attempts to make things different for them. So the first time that I had walked across the country, it was for seeing my daughter for the very first time. So the first time that I got to see my daughter, she was 1 year and 4 months old at that time.
Wow.
And what took place is I was actually working for BMW. I have a degree in automotive, and I'm ex-military as well, so that kind of helps. But with the walk, but prior to that, it was that I was working that job. I was working for Target, a store company,
Mm-hmm.
working for both places. I was taking care of my mother in the United States. She was living with me. I was helping support her. My wife was back in Mexico at this time. And so the recession hit around 2008. I lost my job. I didn't have any money saved up whatsoever. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do at that point in time in my life. My wife, was here. We had our child at about a year old. My daughter became severely sick, and because of that, um, she happened to be so severely sick that it actually put her into the hospital. Um, I had a trouble understanding things because of language barriers, because of my wife speaks Spanish, I spoke English, and there was a huge complication in communication, especially at that time. Um, she happened to call me and to let me know that she was having issues with her appendix.
Right.
When you talk about the appendix, that's a massive issue that people die from that bursting, and we're talking a 1-year-old, and so I lived in Texas for a few years after the military, and I had a friend that could speak Spanish, and so what I did is I called him up. I said, "Hey, look, can you call my wife, find out what's going on, see exactly what's needed, what's happening, what's going on." And so I called, spoke to her, or spoke to him. He told me what the situation was. It turns out that my daughter, she initially got sick, and then they tried to treat that sickness with penicillin. Turns out that she was actually allergic to penicillin during that time. And so because of that, it caused a cascading effect of her health. And so we're looking at this time frame, 2009, 2008, 2009, when I'm like, what do I do? I'm about to lose my daughter. I've lost my job. I have no means to be able to get to see her. It's been well over a year since I saw my wife, so what do I do? So at that point in time, I had to go see them. And so I basically said, I need to see him no matter the cost. And so I picked up my military duffel bag and put it over my shoulders and basically carried myself the way to go be able to see them. My intention initially was actually to walk through Mexico, not realizing how dangerous that actually was. I was very, very ill-informed on how things went. It wasn't actually until I had got into Texas that I had realized the factor of how dangerous Mexico was actually. I was staying at a friend's place in Texas, in Amarillo, Texas, and I was staying with them. And on the news, it just happened to be that they were talking about the dangers of Mexico and how our government was warning for travelers going through Mexico. I'm like, now what? Now what do I do? I was looking to walk all the way through, Now what do I do? So I had to regroup at that time as well. And fortunately, I was able to get myself to the border of Mexico and America and pick up a bus from there and carry myself, because my wife is about 3,000 miles down.
Right.
She lives in Acapulco, Mexico. And so I was able to get to see her and hold my daughter for the very first time.
Wow.
And ever since that experience changed my life and changed my world. So here we are now doing this.
There's so much to obviously ask about that. I mean, it was similar when you were communing with me via email. It was just like, there's just so much to kind of go into. There are just so many questions and so many places we could go to. I'm sure the listeners must just be thinking like, where do we even go from here? There's just so much to talk about.
Yeah. Why did this guy do this?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
guess I guess that's
what
it.
is this man thinking? The mentality. What is he doing?
Yeah.
Walking, you know. That's the thing, is that it wasn't necessarily planned. It was somewhat planned.
Mm,
It failed miserably on because I actually had went the first time with the little luggage cart. You know, those carts that you pull your luggage around in the airports and
right.
stuff. Yeah, I took one of those with the luggage on it, and I literally got one city over, and the wheels on that thing started burning apart. So, you know, I actually had to go back, regroup, and that's where I put the military duffel bag on my back and carried myself the rest of the way. I've walked now two other times after that. The second time was the more strenuous because I actually had a cart with me, a box,
Mm,
a cargo box on top of a dolly that I carried, made into kind of a rickshaw
mm,
cart. And so I carried that with me throughout the United States from Virginia to California. And that was to try to help raise awareness
mm,
of family separation, about the importance of family. And it's not just about immigration, it is on my side, but there are so many families that are missing those moments that mattered. You know, I missed my daughter's first words, her
mm,
first steps, you know, her first birthday. I missed all of that. And those are things you cannot get back. When those things are gone, they're gone. You know, you're not getting those back.
mm-hmm.
So how do you change or make that difference for others? And that's really where the second walk kind of came to be, you know, trying to raise awareness for families. I was told even by immigration specialists in the senator's office. I went to a congressman's office, senator's office, and they told me you should just focus on your family only. You start with yourself first. And maybe I should have listened to them, you know, but I couldn't imagine that I'm the only one
Yeah.
dealing with this situation. There has to be others out there that has the same issue as me. Maybe they're not willing to go to the extents of what I
Walking.
did, but you know, but they have the same issue. They're missing those important moments, and
Hmm.
you know, we never really, especially when we're there and we're physically there, we don't really think about the significance of being able to see your child get up in the morning, you know, putting them down for bed,
Mm,
you know, being able to make them a meal.
hmm.
You know, those little things are things that are done every day, but they're never seen as something that's special.
Mm,
So it's about making those special moments last and
mm,
actually happen. So, you know, um, and then that was really what the second walk was about, was just raising awareness. My third walk was I happened to hear about the Mexican consulate in a city about, I want to say, was 200 miles away from us. But I happened to go up to Fredericksburg, Virginia, walking.
hmm.
And that was because I heard of a Mexican consulate. Usually they're in Washington, D.C., but they were coming down for a special visit to help people out with things and stuff. And I learned that it's weird to me because I'm an American citizen, but in order to get a Mexican passport, um, for my child and for my wife, I had to sign on paperwork. Physically, I couldn't go to Mexico to do that for them. So I did that at
Right.
the special visit of the consulate. And I also was invited to a conference out in Houston, Texas. And so after hitting Fredericksburg, Virginia, I took a trip down to Houston. I was able to make it there. Fortunately, by the very last day of the conference, I was able to speak in front of about 200 to 300 people. They gave me 5 minutes time to be able to talk to them, which is awesome. You know, being able to share my story with others and being able to do those type of things. You know, I there are times where I want to shut down and I want to solely focus on just the whys of what I'm doing. Is what I'm doing purposeful? Is it worthwhile? Should I not be focused on my family? More so than the effect of families being absent, the absentee family. And and it's a hard distinguish to make because there's not a lot of making money in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that's obviously a trend of, I mean, a lot of dads obviously have come to some place of having that kind of like internal battle of like, where am I spending my time? But it's not always quite as, I guess, drastic as your situation. And trying to help other people is obviously a really beneficial thing, but like if that does come at the cost, then that is going to be a challenge. I'm curious, what would you like, so during this stage, so let's say that when you do your first walk to even see your daughter for the first time, what is the absolute ideal solution, I guess, to that problem? Did you just desire for your wife and your daughter to be able to move to America? Was that the solution?
So at the time, absolutely. But always there's roadblocks in the direction of coming to America. I was very hopeful, very naive, and very uninformed when I was making these journeys and stuff. And I've learned a lot along the years and the ways of doing things. But so for bringing my wife and kids, it was always a goal. My youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, that's now 23. When she was 6, 7 years old, she would tell her friends at the school that they're coming to America. They had that dream as well during that time of being a child, to be able to come to America. It's obviously it's changed over the years. They've grown here in Mexico, and so it's altered our pathway forward of doing things. Now it's more about, I would love to have them visit America, to visit my home, to visit where I was raised, to show them the beach of the Atlantic Ocean, to show them my schools, and to show them the path, to show them the massive amount of effort that I took out to try to make sure that they were able to live not a well-off life, but a decent life, where they didn't have to worry about where their food was coming from, where they didn't have to worry about where their clothes were coming from, or where their heads were going to rest. These are things that I had to worry about as a child. We ate pinto beans. Hate pinto beans now because of it, but and chicken liver and onions, and so there's certain things that I wanted to afford them the comfortability to be able to have a life, and the hopes and dreams of them coming to America would have been astronomically better for them to be there, to give them the benefit of living there. The requirements of our government, the American government, though, is so high. And it's understandable. Don't get me wrong. It's understandable as to why it's high. You don't want people coming into the country just living off of the fat of the land, living off of the social services, off of the systems that are in place to help families that are in need. You are wanting to come to that country to thrive, not just survive. And so because of that, I wanted to bring them better into a better situation, but I was not earning the amount of money that the government required to be able to bring them without a sponsorship, without someone else stepping in and saying, hey, I will make sure that they're taken care of. I'll make sure that their medical is taken care of, their support. I didn't have that. My mother, God rest her soul, did everything that she could for us as she was our mother, and she tried to do the best for us, being a single mother to a certain extent. My real father can talk about that a little bit later as well, but he was a pedophile. He actually pled guilty to my sister.
Wow.
And so, that destroyed our family there. My stepfather after that was an alcoholic. So there was many things that happened to create the poverty of our lives. And I didn't have the family members or things of that nature that would be able to step in and say, yes, we'll help you out. We'll support you. We got you covered. I didn't have that stability. And because of that, my kids suffered. And that's kind of the hardest things, because I really wanted to bring them to America. They wanted to come to America. That whole first walk really was to see my daughter for the first time, to actually put her in my arms and to know that, one, I was real, and to know that she was real, and so for that, I wanted to see her. And that, because there was a strong possibility when she got sick that she could have died. If they didn't figure out the situation and actually get her taken care of, it was a strong possibility she could have passed.
Wow.
It wasn't actually until I had until I was writing my book, Stumbling in the Dark, Looking for the Light Switch. It wasn't until that time when I was interviewing with my wife, talking to her, I didn't realize that my daughter was actually in the hospital for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 to 3 weeks. So I wasn't even aware of that until, a couple of years ago of how stressful it was. But by the grace of God, my daughter's okay, and she's growing and thriving now.
Amen. That's amazing. I mean, so I do know a few other people. It's not exactly the same situation, but obviously I live in the Netherlands. So, an EU state, easy transfer of borders
Yes.
if you're within the EU, but not quite so easy if you're from outside the EU. So I know of a few people.
Right.
I actually have, I know someone who is from Nigeria who has a master's degree, but he hasn't been able to get kind of similar to your situation, a job of good enough stability that would have sponsorship, kind of like, financial backing for his whole family. Mm-hmm. So his wife and kids are still in Nigeria, and he, they're not in a situation to fly and see each other. It's just kind of, it is what it is until he can get something.
Yeah.
I had another friend that was from South Africa who's actually been on the show before. It was not quite as drastic with him, but he had to wait, I think it was like 7 or 8 months before the red tape was cleared for his wife and his kids to come over.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious. One of the things I was thinking about when kind of like thinking about these other situations is that at least these guys have, video calling and technology. You're talking about this 20 years ago. Right, what's that even like? Yep. Like trying to make international calls. Like, how often were you able to speak to your wife? Were you in the process of like snail mail? You write letters and things?
I wish it was snail mail. Now Google was around during that time. Google Translate was not the powerhouse that it is today. There is a lot of confusion that came from that, even because let's go back to when me and my wife first met. She spoke Spanish. I spoke English. And that was it.
Wow.
There was no communication there. None.
Wow.
So really what it came down to was, the first time that we were able to actually talk and go about things. She worked at a movie theater during the day. I worked at night. I worked during the day at the same movie theater. She would be the cleaning crew that would come in after they closed and clean out all the last final messes. And not realizing this, but to her, I would see her always at work very early. And so when she would come into work so very early that I would like, why is she here so early? We don't even close for another 3 hours. Why is she here? And I would see her and be like, Lord, you're crazy. What's going on? Why is that? To them, calling them crazy, or I called her loco, which wasn't even the proper terminology, but I called her loco. And they actually take serious offense to that. So she wanted to start cussing me out for calling her local. I wasn't even aware of that. She studied for a couple weeks of English just to try to figure a way out how to be like, why you call me crazy? Wanted to basically cuss me out. And so, but what happened is she could only remember how to ask me my name.
Right.
She's like, what is, and I had to think about your name. And so from there, the following day, I brought in a Spanish English dictionary with me, went to the store, bought that, and brought a little book translator book with me. And our conversation started from there. So when she went back to Mexico, she was 7 months pregnant. So how that transition happened, we started our relationship. Our very first date, she had a friend of a friend come along and translate, somebody she never even met until that night.
Wow.
Come along to translate for our very first date. So when she went back to Mexico, it was because her mother found out she was pregnant, about 7 months pregnancy. She had the two kids from previous relations back in Mexico, staying with her mom because she was here trying to help raise and support them, obviously, to build a better life for them. We happened to meet, and the story goes, we fell in love. And so she happened to go back to Mexico because her mom found out of the pregnancy, said, I'm not going to watch your kids anymore. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. So at that point in time, those kids came first. And that's how we got separated. So we didn't really speak very clear. Even at that point in time, when she went back, we could say, how are you? I'm fine. What's the weather like? Those type of things.
Yeah, the important stuff when you're dealing with a pregnancy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Man, it's been a wild ride, to say the least. It's been a wild ride.
I was just thinking, you need to sell the movie rights for your story to someone. I feel like there's something to it there, with the translator at the first date and the movie meet cute. There's definitely something there to it for sure. And for everything that came after it. But do you speak Spanish now?
Better. I'm not fluent. I'm much better. My wife speaks a lot more English than I do Spanish.
Okay.
I do speak some Spanish. I am not as fluent as I should be. Let's put it that way. I need to be better, a lot better.
You're in Mexico now, right? That's the kind of the resolution to this story, so to speak.
Yes, the end story of it all is that I have now transitioned to living in Mexico, and obviously that's kind of how my wife became pregnant again at 45 years old, and she's 40. So she's not young in her age either, so it's one of those things where it's been a magical journey. There's a lot of road bumps ahead of us right now, trying to deal with everything, trying to understand how we're going to handle things. I'm not just looking at the here and now. Yes, I have to look at the here and now, but I'm one of those future aspects. 10 years from now, I'm going to be 55. This kid is going to be kind of just starting her life and going into school and doing all those things. And it's one of those things where it's like, what do we do? How are we going to handle this? This kid's going to need clothes, going to need food, I am fortunate to be here because now I get to wake up every day beside my wife, and I get to go to bed with her. I get to help her, I wash her feet because she can no longer reach them, those type of things. Those things are special moments, even though, we might get frustrated or we might get bothered with each other at times, to realize, to take a step back and actually realize how fortunate we are just to be able to be together. Sometimes it's needed to be looked at. These kids, being a father to them was a very, very difficult challenge. Being across the borders and thousands of miles away and stuff. And so, but they've grown up. And they don't need me as much as they once did, they have their own lives. I have to respect that to a certain extent. I've been the absentee father in essence, and it's not a great feeling. It's not something that I wanted for them, but it is what took place. And out of everything that I do, I hope that like one day they might be listening to this podcast, or they might be reading the book or reading the blogs that I have on my website. And I'm hoping that that they'll understand who I was and how hard I tried, and things of that nature.
I'm guessing it's not really on you to convince them of like the details of why you've been the absentee father. Like, as you said, they have their own understanding and kind of processing of the situation. They kind of have to come to their own understanding and conclusion about it, right? Like, you can't kind of force their hand of like, oh no, but the reasons that I wasn't here is this, this, and this. And did you know that to get a visa like this way and to do this and this, it's just kind of like, well, they're kids. Like, the reason that we're parents is that we protect them from certain things, and sometimes that means kind of falling on the sword a little bit. How do you kind of like come to terms with that, like in terms of a day-to-day?
It's not easy. That's for sure. It's not easy. Because you see where they are now, and obviously they're living. They're still making mistakes, but I'm still making mistakes. I'm 45 years old, so I'm thinking that, if I can at least be here to help them with their current state, if they have questions, I'm here. I can't speak fully to them because they speak Spanish. Now, some of them do speak English, or a minuscule amount, just kind of like how my wife and our relationship began, but I'm here for them. If they really have questions or want to understand things, I'm here for them. I try to let them live their life. That's what they're used to. They're not used to me interfering and being there and saying, nope, don't do that. Nope, you can't do that. Hey, do this way. This is better for you. They kind of have to learn things in a different form, a different sense of way. But I'm there if they falter. My wife is the strongest mother there probably is. And I have to applaud her because she gave it everything. When I was not there, she was there, taking them to school, picking them up, having to deal with the teachers, the homework, the problems, the fights, the arguments, the kids that, that don't want to eat their green beans, that, you try to get them to try different foods. She's had to deal with all that. And I was the moneymaker for the time being. When I was living in America, didn't make a lot of money. It wasn't until my later years that I started making some extra money and enough money to really kind of help them survive a little. I don't think there's ever enough money that you can earn.
Of course not. No. There's never going to be enough.
There's always something needed.
Exactly.
There's always something needed.
There's always a shift.
But yeah, absolutely. So but I was the provider while she was the discipliner. But she always, even when they were young, she had always went and taught them who I was. And so much so that all she would have to do is make a phone call to me and they would straighten up. That so much so that I'm not even there. I'm thousands of miles away. I can't reach out and be like, no, you're going to do this, and get them to do it. There is no control from my side. I couldn't like go and be like, no, you're going to, and I'm going to make you get it done. All she would have to do is say, I'm going to call your father. And they'd straighten up. They'd stop crying. Okay, I'll make my bed, So, and so that's the work that she put in to be able to show a significance of who I was in their lives, even though I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's really impressive. And just for clarity's sake, I think we kind of like come circle and kind of come back around a bit. You have like three older kids, right? And I'm guessing, so
Yes.
is it so I remember, is it 23, 20, and 17? And it's the
Yes.
17-year-old that's the one that you walked across to see for the first time?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Yes.
so the listeners can
Yes.
kind of like have the picture.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been jumping timelines somewhat, but yeah.
trying to going back to the movie metaphor, how like the flashbacks and the flash forwards and the follow this timeline, and yeah.
Absolutely.
So how
Absolutely.
do those kids how are they approaching the new baby coming along? Do you know kind of what they're feeling about that?
Um, my oldest daughter, that's 23, um, she actually became pregnant the same time, roughly a month after my wife became pregnant. However, unfortunately, my daughter had lost that
Oh
baby.
wow.
She has already lost that baby about 1 month ago, about 1 month
I'm
ago.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it was very difficult for her. So I know that seeing her mother, my wife, with the pregnancy that she could possibly be at the same time pregnant with, I know that it probably weighs on her mind a lot, of the consequences and of things of why is this the way it is and stuff. Although she just recently arrived from Mexico City, over a visit there with some friends of hers, and I guess kind of give her some peace of mind and get her mind right, back into place of, okay, this is life, this is what I have to do, and I'm all for that,
Mm.
if that's what she has to do to get herself in the right space to be able to continue forward. But I know that she brought a little outfit and said it was for her sister. So she brought this little baby outfit, said it's for her sister, to my wife the other night. And I'm thinking, her sister's big. I'm not, my mind is going to her
Mm.
17-year-old sister, not the new sister. So, I think that she's definitely um, hurt by the situation, but she's strong as well at the same time. Um, my youngest sister, she's in her own world. She's actually starting to go to nursing school and all that. So
Wow.
she's already graduated from the high school in essence, and she's been going to nursing school. So she's had her head in the game for that, focusing on that. So where she is she's more of a, oh, look at your belly. This is how it is, and this is why it is, and this is where the water is.
Wow.
And so she's more on the
Practical.
technical
Yeah.
side of the pregnancy. And my son, he actually, to talk about him, he has his own struggles. So he has cerebral
Oh
palsy.
wow.
And for those that don't know what cerebral palsy is, it's a medical condition that, because of a lack of oxygen, can completely disable a person from being able to walk, talk, or do any of that. And so flashback to when my wife had him and everything before she came to America, he happened to he was not passing his milestones, and that was noticed. And then so here, unlike America, where you can get medical help, here it's not. You don't have that medical help. You kind of have to learn things on your own and then
Wow.
apply them into your home. And so that's what she did. She took classes to help learn about his condition and what she could do to help him. So it actually takes three people on the child at the same time, moving the hands, moving the arms, moving the head, to basically be able to get the child to learn how to move their body and stuff. And so for that, today he is actually able to walk.
Wow.
He is actually able to talk. He doesn't have use of his right hand, and he doesn't have strength on the right side of his body, but he's able to do those things. And because of that, like today, he is actually right now staying with his aunt in Cancun, Mexico. We pushed him out there so that he could get a job and be able to work and live his life and
Wow.
try to make a better life situation for himself. But he's right now working at what, I don't know what type of convenience stores you guys have there, but they have a thing called OXXO, or it's also known as 7-Eleven. It's similar. It's just a convenience store, but he at least works for that for right now. And, I applaud him with all of his difficulties, with all his strife, everything that is his issues. I'm hoping that, that he grows stronger into the man that he wants to become. And I'm here to support him every step of the way. If he ever has issues or advice, we have WhatsApp. Like, technology now is a lot better than what it used to be. Tell you that much right now. I have a phone that actually helps me with translating the languages almost automatically, instantaneously. And so because of that, it helps me a great deal better in communication with them, where they can understand me and I can understand them. And so they know that I'm here for them if they really need things, but I wasn't there for them when they were children growing up. And so they don't rely on me as much as maybe I would like them to, but at the same time, it's understandable. They talk to their mother on a daily basis, things of that nature, which my biggest thing was always when they were growing up is, I don't care if you hate me, but you have to respect your mother. You have to respect your mother. I will not let that slide at all.
Yeah.
You can disagree with me. You can not like me. But the biggest thing for me is respect of your mother.
And I think
so
with the teenagers in the early 20s, I would say even people that are present, like, I think we all go through something at that point in our life about how we kind of like approach father figures and parental figures and mother figures anyway. Like, I think we all go through our own thing. And like we said earlier, we just kind of hope that we kind of put the guardrails there and we kind of like make sure the door is always open so that when they want to go a little bit deeper into that relationship, they're able to. So I'm trying to put two and two together. So the older two, they are technically from a previous relationship where you've come in and become their father. Can you talk a little bit about that and what kind of that had looked like in terms of how you've tried to build that relationship as well? Like, were you able to invest into those relationships like from afar? Because I guess they would have been of an older age to kind of communicate on a phone. But again, we come back to a language barrier. So like,
absolutely,
like, so you would have been in these kids' lives for, they would have been in Mexico. So were you able to meet them?
Right.
Like, yeah.
I was,
Okay.
not until I saw my daughter for the first time.
Right, okay.
So they, like everything that, that is because of my wife. So when they were 2 and 5, that's when my wife was in America. Right. 2 and 5, so by the time I saw them, it was 7 and 4, roughly 7-4. About 7-4 years old. And so the whole situation with everything there is that actually while I was working for BMW and stuff, this young child was able to pick up a phone and call me in America, and I answered. She couldn't say anything to me. She was so excited just to have me on the phone, and so obviously as they grew, their questions related back to their real fathers. Why aren't they in contact with me? Because they're not in the pictures whatsoever. Right. So there wasn't that, like, they had a father and then I'm just the husband of their mother, type situation. So my situation is sometimes different than other people where the father still might be present. Yeah. For this, their fathers were not present at all. And so for them, it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult for them as they were growing to try to understand why their real fathers didn't want to have a relationship with them. And and I knew those questions would come. If you know anything, I mean, I was a child. Why did my father do what he did? Qua- Goes through your mind all the time. So these kids that have these fathers, I mean, literally lives two houses back. His parents live two houses back
Wow.
behind. So it's not like, oh, it's way far away, could never come see them or anything like that.
Wow.
And so there's obviously going to be questions as
Yeah.
to why. But with what their mother did, my wife did, gave them the strength to know that I was there as their dad. I don't see them as stepchildren, even though people say, oh, they're your no, they're my kids.
Yeah.
They're my sons. They're my daughters. That's how I see it. I don't call them my stepson, my stepdaughter. They are my kids.
Yeah.
And if they see me that way, they call me dad. They don't call me something else, so it's good, but it's definitely been a challenge for them, growing up and being in that situation. So but they are much older now, and they still call me dad and whatnot.
Awesome.
They don't call me by my name or anything, so I've been very fortunate for again, my wife. I have to hold my wife up, because she is the purpose, the reason why these kids are thriving and surviving the way they are. It's because of her. I was the financial support, but it really was her hands that was in the mix.
Sounds like your wife could write a book or two about parenting. It seems, from the way that you talk about her.
Probably.
So can you just? I'm just curious. So after that first walk to get into Mexico to see your daughter the first time, and then we now know that you're living there, which is 15 years later, give or take. So
18 years later.
So in that, how, were you able to go to Mexico at all? Were your family able to come visit America at all? Was there any in-person what's the word I'm looking for?
Right.
Any gatherings?
Reunification or being, absolutely. Any reunification. So, it was one of those things that, over the years, I really wish that they could come to America, but because of finances, because of how our government is in America, I was never able to get them to America.
Wow.
I have many other stories that can align with why and how, but to keep it short, sweet, and simple, my returns, I was very fortunate for the first 8 years. The first 8 years of our relationship, I was at least to come back to see them once every year. Sometimes it was long. My very first time, I didn't even know I was actually illegal in their country. I'm all about being legal and stuff, but turns out I was actually illegal in their country for about a month. I happened to find that out. And so I got the legal paperwork for me being there. The tourist visa allowed me to be there for 6 months. I was there for 6 months, and then I came back to America. That was the very first time that I came. I was the shortest time that I've came was for about 1 week.
Okay.
1 week is the shortest amount of time. So it's a variation between those time frames. Usually it would be a couple weeks at a time. There's been 2 other times that was for a couple months, but it was something that, and that's really what affected my earnings, my way of living and stuff as well, because anytime that I would take that time out to go see them, that means I wasn't earning the amount of money that I could be earning when I was in America. And so there's a lot to deal with, the government requirements of me earning a certain amount of money. But how do you do that when you have a family that needs you to be there for them, but then, you're supposed to earn X, Y, and Z dollars. So it's been a back and forth situation where I would travel to them. Um, those 3 times that I walked, each time I came in and basically got to see them after those walks. After I walked into Houston, I walked to San Antonio, met someone there, and I was able to pick a bus up from there and go see them. And I was, after walking from California, I was able to get my way back to Virginia and then pick up an airplane and go see them. So it's not always
that was
walking.
still going to be one of my questions.
Not
Yeah.
always walking.
It's like,
Not
you
always
told me 3
walking,
times, but you've walked through 20 other times. No.
Yeah. No, I've been very fortunate over the span of time. I've worked my butt off, usually
sure.
working 60 to 80 hours a week, on average, just to try to make sure that they were taken care of as best as possible. You know, my whole goal was to make sure that they did not worry about food and did not worry about their clothes and things of that nature. So that was my biggest decision. You know, I gave up a lot of comforts and things of that nature, but as long as they don't realize everything, the all the stuff, like I said, it would be too difficult to explain everything in one sitting. But then at the same time, it's one of those things where I hope through my stories, my books, I'm going to be writing another book, Stumbling in the Dark Looking for the Light Switch. That's actually going to be on genetic predisposition. And it's a nature versus nurture type thing. It's going to be about fatherhood. It's going to be about those lessons that I would love to instill and teach my kids, you know, and so, and maybe, you know, and maybe from that find some understanding for myself, you know, because of my father. You know, I have his genetics, you know, but does that make me who he was? And how much does it make of me of who he was? And so, but then the nurture side, my mother, the strength that she gave, the belief and love for the Lord that she showed, and her strength in the time of despair and all the issues that she had, and how she was having to carry for 3 children as well, while one was having serious psychological issues from cause of the real father, and the other one not having the capabilities of really wanting to speak to people because of the situations that he went through as a child. And so for those reasons, for those things, you know, I want to dive into this book and kind of divulge and split and see and share with my kids. That's really what my memoir book is for. It's for my kids. I hope that it shares the strength that you need to have to push forward, even in the dark, stumbling in the dark, you know, looking for the light switch. That's that, looking for that aha moment, that moment that says, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where I'm supposed to be at. And this is how we're going to get it done. You know, and I think that's what a lot of us look for, is that moment that says, this is it. This is where I'm meant to be.
So during this time, like, what would you look to, I guess, for support? You've already said that, you know, a kind of a God-fearing man, like a man with Jesus in your life. Like for me, if I put myself in that situation, you know, myself, I'm also a Christian, like that would be kind of, I guess, all I can kind of turn to. But, you know, when we talk about support for fathers in general, I think nowadays, at least, there's quite a lot of stuff out there. Obviously, podcasts, you know, like this. Like, I find not maybe as much as for mothers, but there are more and more kind of groups starting up. Men are just being more vulnerable with one another and just being honest. It's like, hey, like, you know, I'm struggling as a dad. This thing is really tough for me. Like, how do you kind of get through that? And I feel as though being a dad in this kind of generation, there is more support, and that seems to have come out of a lot of people just kind of saying, my dad clearly didn't have that support, didn't kind of deal with things in a healthy way, was either on the golf course 7 days a week, or was completely absent, or abusive, or angry, or an alcoholic. Like my dad had his support network, and it was like a bottle of whiskey or whatever it might be, and like people have gone
Right.
through those situations and then said, I can help a little bit by finding support for myself, but then providing support for others. Did you ever find yourself having support in any sense, or did you kind of only really have maybe your faith in that time when it was the toughest?
I think faith overrid a lot of the stuff.
Right.
The thing is looking up, and not having to look inward to a certain extent. Now, I did when I was a child, during the times of the situation, journaling, writing journals, writing your feelings, writing your emotions, just getting it out, to be able to clear your head, in essence, and being able to understand what you're going through. If you don't have a sounding board, someone to talk with, at least writing it out might be able to at least get that emotions out of your system and onto the paper. My book, that's what that's based around, is the journals that I wrote on my trips, but also from my childhood, those things that, trying to make sense of ways of what the life is. Nowadays, absolutely, there's a lot more support groups. There's a lot more things out there. I'm a veteran of the military, so we have the VA hospital, the Veteran Affairs Hospital in America, that can help and assist with those things. But the first step that a person has to take is they have to be willing to take that step. They have to be willing to go out there and look, because I'm going to tell you this much: no one is going to come to you looking for you and saying, what is wrong?
Yeah.
What's your issues? They're going to see you as a jerk. They're going to see you as a person that is uptight, that a person that is a loose cannon, that can't handle things. But they're not going to look at the deeper reason. All they're going to see is that face, that outward appearance, and that's it. They don't dive into the deepness. So as an individual, you have to take a step forward for yourself, for your own sanity, for your own peace of mind. If religion isn't your thing, look for what's in your environment. What are things that you enjoy? Golfing, if it's business, go to business meetings. If it's, to be able to be in those environments. If you shut yourself in, you're going to feel alone, and you're just going to continue to feel alone, and you're going to dig yourself deeper into the ground, a hole in the ground that you cannot climb out of, or it's going to feel impossible to climb out of. And so the biggest thing for me is that you have to be able to take a step forward. And once you do, it's not going to be easy. Problems aren't going to be completely solved. They're still there, but it might help you start to learn how to maybe cope just a little bit better with that issue than to just ignore it and hope that it goes away, because they don't go away.
No, they don't. And I think, taking that first step is super important. And then I think just having the discipline, staying with it. And I think when we talk about support, we talk about the accountability to kind of keep up with some discipline. And I think,
absolutely,
that those situations and those support networks are super, super valuable. So as we're on the topic of support, and we've kind of touched on a little bit in terms of you wanting to help other people in a similar situations to what you've kind of gone through. Do you, like, having, been living it for so many years, and now you're in Mexico, did you find yourself meeting other people? Did you find other men and women that were separated in these sort of situations? Did you find it was a common thing, people that went through the same sort of issues? Or
I didn't find white people that were having issues with Mexicans. No, I feel like I'm still the only one. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard a few times that Hispanics would be like, finally, we have a white guy working for us, that a white guy that actually understands what we're going through,
Mm.
and so there are people that are out there. Joined the Hampton Roads Hispanic Chamber of Commerce when it was there, and I was involved with them and their dealings and their festivals and all of that stuff. And so I met with a lot of people, especially on my walk and stuff, and I think everybody has a story to share.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is. Everybody has a story to share. Everybody has a unique experience, even though it might have been said before. Your experience is not the same as the person's beside you,
Mm-hmm.
and and even though mine isn't exactly like somebody else's, I'm pretty sure that somebody can relate to being the absentee father, that somebody can relate to being part of a child that grew up in a messed up home, that grew up in a home with a single mother trying to do everything she could to help the home move forward, and to prosper. um, I have certain lines of respect for. I will always have a line of respect for mothers,
Mm.
because they give birth. We help out in the essence of life, but they are the ones that carry the child
Oh
for
yeah.
9 months, and so I have to give a certain tip of the hat to them
Mm-hmm.
as well. I wouldn't be here, or maybe be as strong as I am today without my mother's guidance and my mother's assistance, and being able to see her, even if she didn't see her, I saw her.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it's the same thing as us as dads. We don't see how much our kids see us until they start to emulate us, and the reasonings of what they do things, how they get upset with things, or how they react, or what sports teams they enjoy.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of just mention, you mentioned like sort of like how people can connect with a different story whose story is not obviously not the same as theirs. I found it. I just kind of want to put it out there in terms of my perspective and how I've kind of connected to your story, because my dad was always around, but then my parents divorced when I was a kid, but he was always around, until he passed away when I was in my early 20s. But I used to be a primary school teacher, and without going into too much detail about it, but there was I worked in a school. This was in a different country, but I worked in a school that had a lot of quite wealthy kids, but kids whose dad would, live in thousands of miles away in a really wealthy, high paying job. And the kids were well looked after, very well looked after financially. But, it would get to Christmas time and stuff, and we'd be making Christmas cards and things in classes. And there would be there are like two that stand out in my memory of like these two kids who would like sit down and one would write a card to their dad about saying, "I miss you. I haven't seen you for this many months." And like, as the teacher who's seeing the child in front of you go through this, it's so easy in that situation to be like, "Oh, absentee dad, like what, like, off gallivanting, doing his business and like loving his life." But then you're kind of processing that situation from that perspective in that situation, and not knowing what sacrifices the dad has had to make. Maybe he is desperate to be there more and more and more, but you just don't know. And it kind of comes back to just wanting to give grace to people, like, and how you kind of process that situation as an adult, whether you're a teacher or a parent or whoever it might be, that you kind of give grace in these situations. And hearing these other stories, that has really helped me kind of like process some of these things. So I just wanted to kind of share that to you, that, yeah, maybe there are lots of people maybe listening that would have heard stories about an absentee father, and it's very easy to jump to the conclusion of, oh yeah, absentee means deadbeat or useless or not providing or whatever it might be.
Right. Absolutely. I do want to say something about the moving that step forward at a time.
Yeah, go for it.
The thing is let's talk about the 90 days for change real quick. The thing is there was a terminology that used to be that said at 90 days, that's what it takes to implement change, pure change that's continuous, that's going to evolve to better things. That's not the way things go nowadays or how they see things through studies they've done, but I still believe in 90 days. I have 3 months. Right now, a little less than 3 months till my daughter is here. And so I'm in a new country. I have no idea what I'm doing. Never been a father. At this point in time, my wife in about a month it's going to be at a point where I'm in her life where I was never in her life before. You know, she was 7 months pregnant. 7 months pregnancy, I lost her up to a year and 4 months. Once I hit that year and 4 months of how old my child's going to be, it's just everything is new for me. And so for these next 90 days, I have to make an immediate change. I have to be pushing myself every day to make a difference for my child. That's why I'm here today with you and trying to write this book. I'm updating my blogs and stuff, and I'm hoping that I can get people to understand and to follow along, because we have to move forward. I have to move forward. I have to make that difference for my child. They're going to depend on me. They're going to need clothes. They're going to need food. They're going to need so many things that I can't even think of right now that they're going to need. Love and support is an absolute 100% of what they need, more than anything else. And fortunately, I'm going to be here for that time, but I have 90 days to do all this in, and every single day I'm going to push towards that goal to make it a better life for them and potentially for myself and my wife.
Practically, what does that look like? Do you set yourself mini goals on a day-to-day basis?
I have no clue what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing. Honestly, it has to be an honesty thing. I have no clue what I'm doing. And honestly, with so much that I've tried in the past, am I just wasting time? That's my biggest question. Am I wasting time? Am I going to look at this 90 days from now and say, why did you do that? All the shoulda, woulda, coulda, it's already gone. I can't change what's happening, but I'm hoping to change what's going to happen. And the only way I can do that is by moving forward, taking that step, taking that risk, and doing that. So my goal right now is, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to catch on to people, but being a father is probably one of the most important things that you can do to be in that child's life. That is one of the most important things that you can do, is be in that child's life. And so I might not be the wealthiest or the best looking or the strongest or whatever, but being present is what matters. And that's really what it's going to take, is being present in that child's life. So my 90 days right now, the lookout is I'm trying to write blogs. Every single week I'm getting one posted and it's going to circumvent around my second book right now. That's where I'm at. I already have 25 blogs on my website, and they teach about life and life lessons, wealth of knowledge, the curse of knowledge, our 90-day challenge, all of that stuff. So, I ask people just to take a look if they can, familyreunitenetwork.com. But it's what I'm looking for is my wife wants to believe in me, and I know she's given me the time and the space to be able to do this. And I'm just hoping that I can prove her right, that this is worth the time, that this is worth the value. Right now, I question it. I question, am I doing the right thing? Should I not be just going out and studying Spanish every day? And I am studying Spanish, maybe not every day, but, and how much should I just return back to America and just try to get a job again and be separated, but at least be able to provide? But I can't do that. I can't. And so my 90 days is being here for them to be able to show that, like this podcast being online and maybe it'll catch fire. That's what I'm hoping for, to see something catch fire and actually ignite. All these 3 times I walked, I've seen success but not the success that I was hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to continue. I'm going to try. I'm going to do what I can for my kids, for my wife, but they rely on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what in 90 days it's going to look like. But I still have to try.
Yeah. And I think from every dad I've spoken to, whether on this show or elsewhere, everyone kind of has the same questions. They just sound different. Like the specific details are different. It's like, what if I should just do this? What if I should just do this? Is it worth me doing this? Is it worth me dropping out of like my high paying job and going back to college to learn this thing? Is it worth me taking this lower paying job so I'm just a happier person? Like, replace the details with whatever it is. And I think every dad goes through this same process. It's like, for me currently, I've been a stay-at-home dad for nearly 2 years. Like, the question is always like, is this right for my kids? Should I just be throwing them into daycare and going back into work? Like, are they benefiting from being around me, or should I, does my family benefit from me spending extra time at home and like taking some pressure off my wife in terms of the household things? And like, it's just different for everyone, and everyone has these same things that just rattle around our brain. So just let you know, Timothy, you're not alone. You're not alone in that process of just kind of like lying awake at night with these things bouncing against each other. Like, what if? And I think, you just got to take that step forward. You just got to do something. And then, I often ask myself, it's like, if I'm like opening Netflix or YouTube, and it's like, am I wasting this time? Like, is there something I could be doing that's a little bit better than this? And the answer is normally probably yes. So, within reason.
But sometimes you also have to take a break too. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. If you don't watch that Netflix or the Hulu, it's okay. But how much time are you investing in that Netflix or that Hulu? That's the difference there. It is how much time is invested.
Yeah, I totally agreed. So the last question I ask our guests always, and it's going to be interesting for you because I always ask the guests to think back to right before they became a father for the very first time. What advice would you give to Timothy back then?
Absolutely. I would say save money. Save money, learn how to invest and save money. If I could do anything, save money is obviously, everybody says, oh, save money. But it's different for different people, for different incomes, and how much you can save. Obviously, as you get older, you need to save more than what you could if you were, say, in your 20s. You don't have as many bills as you did when you were, 16 as you are in your 30s. You have mortgage, you have different things, you have different car payments, all that stuff. So save money and learn to invest, learn how to invest your money, because it's good to bury your money into the ground, but if it's not growing, it's not doing anything for you. It's just, if anything, the inflation of things creates a deficit for that money that you just buried in the ground. So save money, learn to invest, and really that's what I would say.
Yeah, like the parable of the man who comes back and says, "Why did you bury it in the ground? You might as well put it on loan at the bank and at least got interest on my gold instead of the guy that was given one piece of gold and invested it and got 5 back." So definitely investing wisely. If you're not doing it yet, is definitely a good thing. So no, thanks so much, Timothy. And as I said, there are probably a million questions on my sheet that we didn't get around to addressing, but many more that we covered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we can always do a part 2 if people are interested. There's
possibly
always a possibility for part 2.
I was wondering if we should just keep it going and like run for 2 hours and then cut it up, but I think we all need a little bit of a break, as we just said. So, but no, thanks so much for joining us today, Timothy. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And there we have another Dad Dialogue conversation. Of course, a huge thank you goes out to Timothy for coming on the show and sharing his very unique story with us. I'm sure you can agree with me just how special and rare that a story like that is, and to kind of see his heart behind the decisions that had to be made and kind of the separation that had to be there at the time in terms of the country distance, and still wanting to support the family and still be as much as possible present in the kids' lives, not just his biological child but also the children of his wife from a previous relationship that he stepped into the fatherhood of. And it really does raise the question of, what is fatherhood? What does being a father mean? What are the actions that we take to be a good man and to portray good fatherhood and good choices to our children and our families? So, very kind of unique perspective on things, especially when you're coming from my point of view as being a stay-at-home dad and obviously spending lots of time with my kids, to then him supporting his family and supporting his children and wife from hundreds of miles away, and what that kind of looks like. And the heart behind it is still the same. The love for a family, the love for the best outcomes, the best possibilities for children is still there, still present. So yeah, I'm wishing Timothy well for the upcoming arrival of his new child as well. That's super exciting times for him. But if you would like to hear more about Timothy's story, there are all the links to his website and blog will be there. We've actually collaborated as well on something over on his website, so please do go over and check that out. Links, of course, will be in the description and the show notes. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for listening or watching today. I hope you have an awesome day, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye.